human design, we obviously are obsessed with it because it gives you the languaging around who you are, what your gifts are specifically, what your life purpose is. And it just rings so true when you hear this language about yourself that it's like, wow, I've always felt that I just didn't have the words to explain what that was. Or I thought maybe everybody felt that, or that it wasn't that special. And hearing it back, it's just so incredibly validating and then liberating. And then it tells you how to lean in to these different aspects in the highest expression. So it's powerful, but that's where we're headed in the next few years.
Welcome, Dana and Shayna, to the Highest Self podcast. It's so great to have you guys here.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
And the first question I'd love to ask you is, what makes you your highest self? So we'll start with you, Shayna.
So I'm Shayna, and what makes me my highest self, I would say, is having freedom to do whatever feels good to my body, to my mind, to my spirit every single day. So not feeling tied down or stuck or pressured to have to be or do something that doesn't feel authentic to me that day.
I agree with you on that so much. I remember you said something like a while ago. You were like, I truthfully don't want to have anything on my schedule, like a meeting I have to be there for a specific time. I was like, I had obviously felt that before, but I didn't even know that's like allowed to desire because our society is so like, how can you not have to show up at a certain time? You know, we're on a podcast here, we're showing up at a certain time. But now that I had that in mind, I was like, ooh, that is like a level of freedom that I desire, of like getting to that point that we're all just like, hey, like we're interconnecting. Let's hop on a podcast right now without even the need to like have it on a calendar and double check, just to get to that place that we're in the optimal energy to do the things that we want to do.
Totally. And when you're, doing things that you love and you're really lit up by your life, the things that you have to do, I put in quotes, it's you're excited to do them, right? Like you're excited to show up for that podcast, or you're excited to start working on that new project or that book or have that team meeting because you're so lit up by your life. It doesn't feel like, oh my God, I have to do this and now I'm exhausted. And having that freedom it's so incredibly liberating. I know that's redundant, but it is to be able to just say, you know what, let's move this to next week because right now it's just not feeling in alignment for me. That's really, even if it's meeting with a friend for coffee, having the freedom to do that in my life it makes me my highest self. Yeah, for sure.
Love that. And how about for you, Dana?
Mine is kind of similar, but I would say what makes me my highest self is when I am so deeply in tune with my authenticity. Like I am just living and breathing my true self and really feeling my soul in every little moment, guiding me and whispering to me and feeling that what that feels like in my body. And for me too, it is all about kind of having these blinders on about what other people want from me or what society expects from me, but really singing when I want and dancing when I want and being crazy and weird when I want and having no limitations, no boundaries, but really just letting my authenticity be completely undefined and just letting myself like flow in that space. And I have so much self-love for myself when I'm living in that space.
I love that. I so agree. And I think that that's one of the gifts that the past like 2 years has given us, of that more time at home, that it's like, have the dance party that you want, like walk around naked, like do your thing. And it's like less about my interaction with the outer world. And it's been so much more of what is my interaction with my inner world.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, a big part of human design is understanding your uniqueness as an individual. But then when you're living as this unique individual, you end up creating a life path for yourself that is completely unique. And I am seeing like my close friend groups, including myself, like I'm just getting to witness how beautiful and special it is to see someone creating a life path that is as unique as they are, like truly authentic in every little way. It's like, it's just so beautiful to see that diversity. And I really believe that that diversity is the thing that creates the most harmony and health overall in the collective.
I love that so much. And I think that as a collective, like, I remember the game Life, that board game. And it's like, you pull a card, and it's like, you're a doctor, you're a firefighter, you're this. And it's like, we used to be so linear in our life paths of like, choose one. And now I feel like it's like almost like a rainbow, that it's like diffusing in different colors, but even like layers of those colors of like infrared and like ultraviolet. And like, there's just so many spectrums that are infinitely also expanding. So even like what is unique to you at one point may also transition with time. So it's like continually to honor that.
Absolutely. That's so true. And yeah, I think we even get in our minds sometimes about what our uniqueness is, and we try to like hold it down and like, I used to really be into this, so this is who I am. And we try to identify that as ourselves instead of just like being present in this moment and like letting ourselves kind of be a channel for who we are in that moment without any of those limitations or any of those like pre-existing structures.
Yes. And that's what human design is so beautiful for. It really gives you that permission slip to be you. So I feel like there has been this like resurgence of human design, or maybe it's like its first time really of going out to the masses. And I feel like it's because of that, the fact that the difference between it and astrology that I take is it's like not telling you what to do, but it's more like how you can do it best. So I would love to hear your take of why human design now.
Well, I think a big part of it is the way that our collective is evolving. We're in this kind of great shift that's happening where people are awakening on a mass scale. And at this exact same time, we are also having the structures that existed before crumble. So we're in this big shift that's happening all at once where the structures that, we used to fit ourselves into those boxes, we pulled that card and said, okay, I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to commit myself to that or whatever. All of those structures around our education and our work systems and that one size fits all way to success and happiness is literally crumbling right in front of us. And at the same time, we're really experiencing this rising, this individualism on a soul level coming to earth, and really every person as a unique individual being able to create their heaven on earth and what that means for the collective. So we are in this shift that's kind of happening astrologically. And in human design, they say that the peak of this shift, when we're really in this new paradigm, this new way of being, is going to be in 2027. So we are like in this 7-year crunch time period where things are just rapidly changing all around us. And we're experiencing it in all of these different ways. And in this time, I think we are so ready for something new. We are so ready to step into becoming our own authority of our own life and being a co-creator of our own life. And so I think that people are just ready on that collective scale to say, okay, the structures that existed before me, the rules that were set out before me of how to live life, they don't work. They're falling apart in front of me. And I'm feeling this soul call to step into my uniqueness, to step into my dharma, to step into like the highest expression of my path. So human design is just such a gift. Like, we really see human design as a gift that has been gifted to humanity. And it's just there for us to help us in this bridge, in this gap. Because what human design is really for is to help you operate as your authentic self in alignment. And you don't actually need a system to do that. You don't need any rules. You don't need any cerebral, mental checklist to be able to operate as yourself. But when we're transitioning from this space of being so mentally driven and being so into these structures and really operating in this space of conditioning and what our conditioning tells us to do, as we're transitioning, human design is like this bridge that shows you, here's why you were operating in all these ways. Here's why you thought that you had to homogenize and conform and be the same way that everyone else is in society. And here's how you really are. And here's how you use your energy correctly so that you live in that authenticity, so you live in that alignment. So human design is really like this roadmap back to yourself, back to the you that your soul chose to be in this lifetime. And it's beautiful because it can be so liberating, but it really, what it does is it gives you permission to be who you always secretly wanted to be, but you just thought it wasn't okay. So we hear this all the time. And when we do readings for people, they say, I feel like I got permission to be myself. And that's really what it is. It's not telling you anything new, although at first some of the things you learn can be a bit shocking just because it's such a different way of operating than what we've been taught. But really what it is this roadmap back to yourself. And it helps you kind of remember who you really are and who you came here to be in this lifetime.
So beautifully said. And there's one thing that you mentioned that I have felt so resonant with. And I feel like it's also like this generational thing that's emerging, and that's the individual within the collective. Because a lot of like the older generation, even spiritual teachers, it's like super about the collective and like sacrifice yourself for the collective. And sometimes it's not what you want, but it's for the collective. And I don't know if you have you guys heard of spiral dynamics? It's like these different levels of consciousness, and that level of consciousness is green, which is like all about like, you know, being politically correct, or like the green party, green this, green that. And then the next level that we go after that, it's the yellow phase, which is like, it's not about this collective being this thing that doesn't include me. It includes me in it. So what is also best for the individual, because the collective is comprised of tons of individuals. So I love that you said that, because I do think that this word like collective can sometimes be used against us, of like, it's not about you, don't be selfish, do what the collective needs. But it's like, if every single person is honoring their human design, their dharma, their truth, their intuition, that's what's actually going to create a thriving collective.
Yeah, and actually, you hit the nail on the head with what this new paradigm is about. So, the last 400 years, human design really teaches that we've been in this paradigm about building structures, building the collective, building community. So, creating churches and religions and governments, and my country is better than your country, and you can't sit with us type of energy. My sports team is how I identify. I'm a part of that team. And if you're against me, then you're not my family or my friend, right? And that collective has been what we've been needing to build for the last 400 years. And we have these structures. And now this new paradigm is all about the individual. And where does the individual fit within the collective? That's exactly what we're shifting into. So it's really getting clear on, well, who am I within this collective? And what do I want to do? And how can I become my own authority and really just honor myself? And how does that work with all of the different people around me? It's not saying like F you to the collective. It's saying, okay, thank you for this collective that we have. And who am I within this? How do I genuinely want to contribute? Not how should I contribute, or what am I expected to contribute? So it is all about empowering yourself to become your own authority. And human design, we obviously are obsessed with it because it gives you the languaging around who you are, what your gifts are specifically, what your life purpose is. And it just rings so true when you hear this language about yourself, that it's like, wow, I've always felt that I just didn't have the words to explain what that was. Or I thought maybe everybody felt that, or that it wasn't that special. And hearing it back, it's just so incredibly validating and then liberating. And then it tells you how to lean in to these different aspects in the highest expression. So it's powerful, but that's where we're headed in the next few years.
And I wanted to kind of add on to that, following all these things, your strategy and authority, understanding who you are, what it really helps you do is be that individual in alignment. And when you are in alignment and really being authentic, your choices, the things that you create, are going to be harmonious for the collective. And that's important to really let sink in, because we are conditioned to believe that our needs and desires are somehow going to go against what the collective needs. We're taught to really look away from what we want. We're taught to kind of sacrifice ourselves, as you mentioned, for the collective. We're taught that the things that we desire are negative in some way, or not going to be helpful in some way, and that if we do what we want, it's selfish. But really, because we are all kind of designed in this higher intelligence and this higher order by our souls before we incarnate into this human lifetime, if we just be who we are, who we truly are, even though we are different than every single other person on this planet, we do operate in harmony. So, having that be your truth, and knowing that when you do what is best for yourself, at the highest level, that is what's best for everyone. That is what's best for the collective. When you do what you want to do and you go after your dreams, that is what's best for the collective, because it's the most sustainable way for you to really be on this planet and be giving. Whereas if you sacrifice yourself, you burn out much more quickly. And then you're actually, in the long run, not able to be of service at all. So it's really kind of, we're in this moment where we're really reframing, what does it mean to follow your own individual desires and needs and wants? And how can you actually see that that's going to be beneficial and harmonious for the collective instead of going against or derailing the collective vision in some way?
So true. And we're seeing that narrative being played out so much right now in the news of like, you're an individualist, you're a collective, you're this, you're that. And like all of these labelings that it's like one or the other. And I think that this new, like the people who are listening to this, who are getting that and receiving it, it's like almost like our souls were programmed to already know this truth. And to see like, no, it's not about if it's right for me, it's wrong for you. If it's right for me, chances are I can feel that it may also be right for you, not the same thing, but the same honoring. And I think that we are so misguided to think that humans only act in their own self-interest, but like self-interest isn't a bad thing. Self-interest means an honoring thing. So yeah, I could dive so deeply into this. I was literally in a conversation about this yesterday with an older spiritual figure, and we were just not seeing eye to eye on this. And it's so fascinating to then speak with you about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not alone in the sentiment.
Yeah. And I also like to really tell people, if you need proof of this, I always like to look to nature and kind of see these ideals or these ideas kind of thriving in nature. And if you look at a healthy ecosystem, it's all about biodiversity. If you have just one plant that's doing its one thing, that system then is no longer healthy, and it's not able to self-sustain itself. And the healthiest ecosystems are ones that have all of this diversity with different plants that are all looking out for their own interest, doing their own thing, but it is cooperative. And those own personal interests are symbiotic. And that is how humans are. We are a part of nature, right? We are designed to be diverse in the same way that all the plants are in the forest. And going with our own self-interest is actually helping the collective, not derailing it, because of that symbiotic nature.
Yeah. The main thing that's falling away is anything that's rooted in ego. So that energy of you can't sit with us, it works the same when you say, oh, well, F the status quo, I'm doing my own thing. That's also saying you can't sit with me because you're basic or you're following the mainstream media and I'm not. So we're different. Or saying, I believe this and you believe that, and that's wrong. So you can't sit with us, right? So all of that ego energy, anything that's rooted in ego is what's going to be crumbling. So businesses that are rooted in ego and greed are going to be crumbling. And the ones that are sustaining are the ones that are rooted in meaning and empowering people to make their own decisions and to be their own authority and decide and get really clear on who am I? What's good for me? And what's good for you is going to be different, and that's great. Like, are you honoring yourself? Are you honoring your truth? Or are you honoring your fear and your ego? That's really what we're having to, this, I call it the pressure cooker time right now, this next 7 years. This pressure cooker that we're in collectively, it's forcing us to look at those structures. It's forcing us to decide, get really clear on what side are we on. And in the end, we're going to figure out, oh, we're on our own side and we're individuals. And how can we honor this within the collective?
Love that so much. So within human design, we have these 4 to 5, depending on manifesting generator, if you lump them together or not, archetypes or energy types. And I've done a podcast about this before. So we're not going to start at the basic here. We're going to kind of start diving in. I'm sure a lot of listeners drawn to this episode already know about what their human design types are. I'll have some links in the show notes for you to find yours. But I see a lot of misconceptions happening here. I see a lot of blanket statements, kind of like what has happened in astrology of like, if you're a Capricorn, you're a bitch. If you're a Leo, you're an attention whore. Like I see that happening even with human design of, I was sharing with you, I saw this TikTok video yesterday that was like, projectors can never work out in the morning. Otherwise, they're going to be sleeping for the rest of the day. And like for me, I have found working out in the morning is the best thing for me to actually have energy for the rest of my day. Or just all of these statements of like, if you're a manifestor, like you're here to be a boss, but like people are going to be triggered by you or this or that. So I'd love to kind of break down these misconceptions in every single energy type so people can find more clarity and then dive deeper into them with the channels, which is actually like what is going to give us the much deeper information than this most surface level archetype.
Totally. Yeah. So just starting with that first example of, being a projector, there are a lot of misconceptions and blanket statements around how much energy you have and how much energy you don't, and how you should be using your energy each day, right? And it's not one size fits all, because a lot of factors weigh in with what centers you have defined, what specific channels you have, and who you're around in your day-to-day environment. If somebody in your house is a man gen or a generator or even another projector, and you guys create this more man gen or generating energy when you're together, your energy is going to feel different at different points of the day. So it's not so much about saying, don't ever work out in the morning if you're a projector, or only work out at night. It's really more so saying, listen to your body and get really clear on what are the things that you're doing that fascinate you, that are really interesting to you. You could talk about them, you could work on them all day long. And what are the things that feel exhausting and like work to you? That's more important to get clear on, because it's going to be different for different people, because we're all fascinated in different things, right? So it's when you get clear on that, then it's about saying, okay, 3 to 4 hours a day, or 2 to 3, depending on what type of projector you are, work on the exhausting things, the things that drain you, and the rest of the time focus on the things that fascinate you. And working out might be one of those things. You might find that, you're a projector that loves to work out, you know, 3 hours a day. And then you have all this energy to go do all this other stuff. And that's great. It's just about getting clear on what's fascinating and what's draining for you is the most important thing. And we have found in general, splenic projectors have a little bit more energy to do physical things. But of course, if you're a splenic projector listening and you're like, I'm tired all the time, there's, places that you can look at. Exhaustion and being tired is such a key theme, I think, when people talk about projectors, that projectors are non-energy beings and they're always tired all the time. They need lots of naps. And while that can be true, there's also factors of, do you hate your job? Are you living your dharma? Do you enjoy how you're using your energy each day? Um, and, do you have a defined route or an open route? A lot of projectors have an open route, and they're doing, and running themselves dry. So there's so many different factors. I mean, we're freaking diverse, but hopefully that kind of helps debunk that. We hate blanket statements because they just don't really apply.
Yeah, like I am a splenic projector, which may be the more energy, and I also have my root defined. So, and I'm also living my dharma. So it's like, so I do have the energy, because there actually isn't really anything I do with my time that I hate doing. Like that is, I'll find a way to not have to do that thing at this point, because I've done so much like narrowing and refining. But even like back when I was like starting my business and I was the only person, I had to do all of the things, I was still so excited about it that I was like excited to learn how to do web design. I was excited to learn how to do SEO, because it was like bringing me closer to my dharma. So the energy was there, but like I could never work a corporate job, because if someone just told me to do something and it's like my excitement is not there, my energy is not there. Like the times that I tried in my life, I've like quit basically instantly, because I just like, I physically can't do it. So I think it is that exact, are you living your truth? And also, are you filling yourself up with things that bring you joy? Because otherwise, of course, you're going to be tired. And I see a lot of people who are generators. They're like, but I'm tired all the time and I'm not a projector. And it's like, answer those same questions. You may be exhausted for those other reasons.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's interesting. People love those blanket statements. Like people love hearing the 5 different energy types and hearing the stereotypes about those 5 types. And we really try to avoid that as much as we can, because there is, what we're talking about with your energy type is the way that your aura works, the way that your energy moves out of your body and interacts or exchanges with the people around you. So while this is a huge part of who you are, and it is absolutely life-changing to know, it's kind of just like one facet of your design. And there's so many other facets. So we really try to avoid those blanket statements, and people almost like ask us to make them. So we love this conversation right now where you're asking us to not make them, because that is really like how we see human design.
Love that so much. So let's talk about some misconceptions with generators. I know one of them people I know who they are entrepreneurial, they are very creative, and then they find out they're a generator and they're a bit pissed. They're like,
Mhm.
are you sure? Or I don't resonate with human design because there's this like misconception that if you're a generator, you need to be given the ideas, told what to do. You're just a doer and you're never
Yeah.
going to be the leader. So can we
Right.
just set this aside once and for all?
Yes, definitely. So generators and manifesting generators make up the majority of the population. Both of these two types, even though they are separate types, have a defined sacral, and that's unique. And so they are kind of this like 70% of the population. So I feel like a lot of generators, the first thing that they can feel is this conditioning that they're not special. And everyone wants to feel special. Everyone wants to feel like they are a leader in their own life. And that's because everyone is special and everyone is a leader in their own life. That's why we want to feel that way. It's because we are that way. So, it's really kind of getting past like, oh, because my type is the majority, that's not special. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd like to say is that as a generator, you have this sacral chakra that is constantly generating life force energy, creative life force energy. And this is a special and powerful thing that your body does. And you are here to use that creative life force energy to create. So generators are actually some of the most creative beings. It's their way of operating with the world is through the things that they create, the way that they use their energy to make something out of nothing, to build something, to expand upon something, or to create something from the ground up. So any of the types can be an athlete. Any of the types can start their own business. Any of the types can be an innovator. It's just the way that that thing starts in their life is going to be slightly different. So that's really when it comes in being a generator, your strategy is to respond. So what that means is that your body has to be ignited by something in front of you to give you that creative energy to then use it. So if you don't have that sacral response, someone shows you this idea or you stumble upon this idea or you stumble upon this opportunity and your body is just not generating that creative energy towards it, it's not going to be right for you. But if you're a generator and you see something on, for example, your computer, and something in your body just ignites and you start generating that life force, creative energy within you, that is your body telling you this thing is right for you. Use your energy now to initiate, to create, to make it happen. So it's really just that first starting point of how that thing comes into your life, how you know it's right for you to take action, how you know it's right for you to initiate. That is that strategy of responding. So a lot of generators that we know own businesses and they're very creative beings and very unique. And also that generating side of them is just one aspect of how their energy kind of interacts or moves through life. But they have all of these different unique talents and gifts that may say that they are a thought leader or they're really here to innovate in some way or be a visionary in some way. They may also have projected channels. So channels that are literally used to guide people the way a projector would in their life.
Yeah. And I also want to add on to that, when you're responding as a generator, you can be inspired by something and that ignites that response in your body, and then you can go create that thing. So maybe you see somebody's business and you just feel this green light in your body's lit up, and now you have this idea or this inspiration. You know what? I want to write my own book. And I have all this energy into just doing it right now. Or you see a website and you're like, that website is so gorgeous and it just sparked this in me. I want to create my own. So it's not that you can't have unique ideas or original ideas. You absolutely can. It's just important that it's being led by this spark in your body, this energy in your body versus this very intellectual place that we're taught to lead from. So really sitting down and saying, okay, I have to figure out my life. I have to figure out what I'm doing. Let me figure out a business. Like, what would be a good business idea, right? That would be starting something out of alignment. So it's really letting your body guide you is the key.
So, would you say the difference between how a projector and a generator get their ideas is maybe a projector's is just coming from their own source, their own channel, not from responding to the outside world, whereas for a generator, it's coming from this response and dialogue with the world?
Yeah, so for a projector, it's really coming from what you see in a way that other people don't. So projectors are really good at seeing into the other, into systems, into projects, and they can see things that other people wouldn't think of or notice. So for example, you could work in HR, or you could be in, working in the corporate world and notice in HR, like, the people that they're hiring in this job would be better in this job. And this just isn't really honoring how they want to use their energy or how they're wanting to provide, whatever. And it's that unique insight that then it feels that spark of, you know what? I want to start my own HR company because I can really guide who to hire and where they need to be placed and how they can best use their skills. I can see it so clearly in an interview or whatever. So that's kind of where it comes from for a projector. Whereas for a generator, it really is that body sensation of that energy. Like, I just want to pour my energy into this, starting this project or working on this project. I have that green light. I'm turned on by this thing. Whereas projector, it's much more about what they see and that unique insight.
And the big difference between generator and projector, generator and manifesting generator, is that it's all about your body. It's all about, do I physically want to use my energy on this physical thing? Whereas for a projector, it's so much more about this thought plane, this kind of cerebral fascination, this psychology fascination. That's really the stimulating fascination factor that draws us in, our insight. It's much more on this thought plane, versus for generators, it's very in the physical body. I ran into this physical opportunity right in front of me. For example, I see these kids playing and my body just wants to, it's ignited to just jump in there and get my hands in there and start, teaching them or building this game or whatever. So it is kind of the plane of the thought plane of psychology and mind and cerebral versus that physical energy.
Yeah. And I just want to add on here, if you are feeling like I'm a generator and I've heard that we're just the worker bees and we just have to put our head down and work for other people, that is all based in ego, right? And really what we encourage you to focus on instead of that, because that's not your life, that's not true, is, am I lit up by this thing, the things that I'm doing? And one thing that's kind of we find helpful is, do you want to devour this thing? It's that feeling of like, I just want to eat this thing. I want to just bring it into my body, right? If you meet a person that you're potentially dating, like, do you want to eat them? It's that feeling, right?
Very
So that's the same
primal.
thing, very primal. Like, do you want to eat this project and just get in there? That's what you're looking for. And we encourage you to focus on that more than, the ego conditioning, like, I'm just here to put my head down and work. You really aren't. You're here to freaking devour the world and like create whatever you want from that creative spark, lit up, energized energy. People who know human design, honestly, at least I feel this way, like, wish that they were generators, because it really is just, when you're lit up, you can work on your shit and you can get it done really quickly and you can build these really amazing things for the world.
And also, when we talk about moving into this new paradigm, generators are actually at the center point of this new paradigm because they are the majority of the population. In this last kind of paradigm that we've been in, generators' power and their creative life force energy has kind of been exploited. And they've been conditioned to hand it over to someone outside of themselves. They have been taught that in order to be of service and in order to love people and be kind and etc., they have to sacrifice what they want to use that energy for and put it into what society wants them to use that energy for. So in this great transition, it's all about the generator reclaiming their power. And if generators focus on that, they end up creating and generating life force energy that spills out of their aura and feeds everyone around them. So actually, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors are kind of needing generators and mangens to empower themselves and to begin to use their energy correctly so that they can generate the life force energy needed for the collective. So this is a really good example where when you do what's selfish, it actually serves, I did that in quotes, it actually serves the collective more. So human design actually has this phrase called enlightened selfishness. Because it's the most enlightened thing you can do to actually use your energy on things that you want to use your energy on as a generator or a mangen.
That is so good. And what you were saying about like wanting to devouring and eat something, like I can feel that in my relationship, but I don't feel that way in my work at all. Like, I'm not like, oh, I want to devour my podcast. That's not really how I would describe it. I'm more like, ooh, I want to like discuss topics and understand and like feel into the collective and like if it were up to me, and I was honestly recently reflecting with myself, I'm like, I just want a podcast. Like, I just love doing this. I just love talking and coming up with ideas and understanding other people's, which is like so me being in my projector. Whereas like more of like the business stuff, I don't love doing that at all. It's like, I feel like I have to do that to get out of the way. But, you know, with my business partners on a specific project, they're both generators, Man Gen and Jen. And they love that. They want to devour the project. They want to look at like the feedback forms and the this and the that. And I'm like, it's so great for me to see like there's a completely different way of operating. Here am I thinking everyone wants to do exactly what I'm doing, but that's not true. We've just only been in our own heads.
Yeah, exactly. And your fascination is there, right? And it's so in alignment for your chart in general, you know, looking at your cross of incarnation and your gifts, but where your fascination is the most important, because there's projectors, you know, based on your gifts, we can see, you know, you'd be really fascinated in this or that. But there are projectors that are fascinated in creating websites for people or in, you know, working on a project. And then there's projectors like ourselves who are fascinated in more like being a thought leader and diving into these concepts and guiding people from that place. So it's really just about getting clear on like, what am I fascinated in? And within that, what's fascinating? And within that, what's fascinating? That's really more of the projector way versus for a generator or man gen, it's like, do I want to devour this thing? That's really more in alignment for them.
I love that. So, what would you say is the difference between manifesting generator and generator?
Yeah. So, Dana, do you want to tackle this man gen?
Yeah.
Well, not
So
dilemma, but
so first of all, I want to say that Shayna and I like really are passionate about actually being human design, like living it, right? So we have this beautiful opportunity in that my husband is a manifesting generator and Shayna's is a generator. So we constantly get to observe the two of them and how they really operate differently in real life, like from our own personal experience. And of course, in human design, they teach it as well. But basically, the main difference is that a generator is going to be more singular in their focus. When they find something that they really want to engage with, they want to fully engage and they want to get right down to the bottom. They don't want to miss any steps. They want to be extremely thorough. And it really, they can be with that one thing for like hours and hours and hours and hours if they are truly ignited by it and if they had a true response going into it. Whereas manifesting generators are a lot more quick. They're a lot more multifaceted. They're a lot more, you know, bouncing all over the place. And the conditioning for them can be that they have ADHD and that they're not able to focus on one thing for an entire day, for many, many hours. It's because they're not designed to. Manifesting generators are very capable and they are here to use their energy creating things and building things the same as a generator, but they're a lot more efficient and they're really interested in making things as easy and fast as they can so they can be on to the next. So a manifesting generator in their career life, it's really important for them to have a lot of diversity in the things that they do, in the ways that they use their energy. They may even want to have two careers that are completely different so that they get to constantly be juggling their energy around to different projects. And if they were forced to do one thing every single day, it would drive them crazy. It's just such a misuse of their energy. Whereas for a generator, if they are truly engaged in that thing, they really want to master it over time. It's, you know, they're totally kind of committed to that thing for as long as their sacral is locked into it. So it's not to say that every generator is going to have one job for their entire life, because that's not true at all. It's just that when they are engaged with this thing, it's going to be a longer amount of time that they're really wanting to completely dive into just that one thing instead of kind of bouncing around to multiple projects.
That makes so much sense because with Dharma Coaching Institute, like I mentioned, one is a man gen, one's a gen. And the man gen, he wants to have like the shortest meetings. And I'm like, what? Like, I feel like it takes me 30 minutes to just like start really thinking. And I'm like, well, how are people feeling and this and like tuning into like, what's the collective experience right now? And his is very like, okay, what are we talking about today? Like what? And I'm curious too, because both your husbands are men and he's a man, like it's like a masculine energy. And I'm like wondering if that's like a man gen thing of just very to the point, very fast, and then like moving on to the next thing. Do you see man gens have more of that masculine energy, or these examples just all happen to be masculine men?
yeah, I would say that these examples just happen to be masculine men because, you know, you can definitely, I've met, you know, projector women who are like, let's get right to the point and like do the A, B, C, and D. That could be coming from conditioning. It could, not be. But, and same thing for men, right? It could be coming from conditioning to just whatever. But it's more so the man gen is thinking ahead, right? Is like, as they're talking about point A, they're thinking about point C, right? So they want to get through point A to get to point B, so that way they can then get to point C. But by the time they're at point C, they're already thinking about point E. So they're ready to just get through the alphabet, right? And for generators, it's like, we are on point A and let's really be here. Let's really look at it. Let's really get through everything there is to talk about here and feel it. And then it's like, okay, setting down point A, picking up point B. And now let's be here with that. And that's really more in alignment. Now, it's kind of tricky because the medicine, if you will, I put in quotes, is for man gens to slow down a little bit and to really say, okay, you know what? If I am talking about point A, let me not be thinking about point C. Let me really just be here, look at it, and make sure that we're being thorough. And then let's go to point B. And so it is this kind of tension within your energy that's really beautiful because it's polarizing. And when you can master that, that's when you feel life is just, you're so magnetic and life is just working with you and things are going and everybody feels supported and connected, and um, and everything has what it needs versus the bare minimum of what it needs. And then now we have to have another meeting because we didn't talk about these other things, right? So having that tension of, oh, I want to go ahead, but let me just really flesh out point A. That's where generators can really help ground in man gens. Now, projectors can see this whole process happening, right? And they can see, oh, I'm trying to talk about these things that are just really fascinating to me, and this generator is not really hearing me because they're focused on point A so much that it's, you almost have to be like, okay, hold on, let me put this right in front of you. And then they have to literally disengage and re-engage with that thing you're now putting in front of them. And it's fascinating. I literally experiment with this with my fiance all the time, because if he's doing yard work and I'm in the kitchen talking about like things that we need to do that day or things that I want to start thinking up for the future or whatever, it's literally in one ear out the other. Like, he is in yard work and I have to be like, okay, hold on, babe, come inside for a second, sit down, and okay, this is what I'm talking about. And then I literally watch him shift to like not really into it because he's still thinking about yard work, to then boom, locked in. And then he wants to make the spreadsheets and he wants to like flesh it out. And then he's fully engaged with that new topic. So it's just a different way of using your energy and knowing that we're all meant to be different. And the way that works for you is meant to work for you. And human design just tells you this is how you optimize your energy versus trying to be like your projector coworker, right? Or trying to be like your man gen coworker.
That is the best description I've ever heard on this, because the way that I have kind of seen it be described is like man gens come up with ideas and can do them, and generators need to get the ideas from someone and can do them. And like, that's how I've sort of seen it be said. And then it sort of like makes it seem like obviously then man gen is better, quote unquote, than Jen if they're doing the ideas. But now how you're sharing it is it's not really that. It's more about, are you more singular focused or multi-focused?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really like, without knowing this awareness, we have this tendency to want to think that everyone should operate the way we do, because we do have this tendency to want unity. We do have this tendency to want to work together in cooperation. So we think, if this is how I work, then this is how everyone else has to work when we're together in this, meeting. But human design really liberates you so much, because especially the projector, you're really interested in this like psychological standpoint of how does everyone work, whereas the generator and the man gen are much more into their own interaction with the environment around them and how they want to use their energy. The projector's seeing all of it. And the projector's like, interesting. How can I guide this person? How can I lead this person? So they're utilizing their energy and honoring their energy. And we all are holding space for each other instead of judging each other or wanting each other to conform in some way so that we can homogenize.
I love that so much. And like, for the projectors out there who can sometimes see this happening, I think it's really important to also ask their permission first if they want the feedback, because it's so easy to be like, you're missing this, and like, you need to be doing this, and like come in, which I could see making the generators and the man gens angry, of like, I'm the one focusing, I'm the one doing the work, I'm the one who's in it, you're coming in from the outside and you're telling me that it's wrong. So to just ask, like, you first of all have the conversation about your human design type, so you all know where your areas of expertise are. But then if you're seeing something, be like, do you mind if I share what my perspective is on this? Because I'm sure you see it too. A lot of projectors give unsolicited advice, which sometimes does not really help.
That's where waiting for the invitation and really understanding how that works comes into play. Because if you feel that there's an open invitation, right? Say it's your meeting, or then you don't need to ask permission. You're already invited, right? Or if it's with a client, or if it's within something that you've created yourself. But if it's something that you're coming to that you haven't created, and you feel like this advice, my insight, is not, there's no place for it to land right now, and you can just feel that, then it's best to just not say anything and wait for the invitation. And then maybe one-on-one with, say, if that's your boss or your coworker, you might be talking and feel like, oh, there's place for this to land. And then you're sharing with them, I see these things that could be more efficient if we use our energy in this way. And then you get that recognition. And then at the next meeting, your boss is like, hey, can you, Shayna, can you share your insight on how we can make this more efficient? And then everybody gets to recognize you. Whereas if you just chime in and you give that insight when there's no place for it to land, you then become repelling. And then everybody now feels like, I don't want your insight. I don't want your opinion, even if it is right and helpful. So it's all about feeling, is there space for this? And is there space for me to ask permission? And if it's like, yeah, there is, great. But if it's like, I don't know, wait for the invitation and go back to focusing on what you're fascinated in, what your gifts are, seeing yourself like, damn, I'm really good at seeing these efficiencies. Even you just seeing that within yourself, other people are going to start noticing it and asking for your advice or your opinion.
I love that so much. So I want to talk a little bit about manifestors. I feel like the common misconception is like manifestors are these like authoritarians. They have very repelling energy. They're very intense to be around, and no one would want to hire them because they need to be their own like leaders and bosses. And I like think of like a king energy to them. Like, what is accurate in that? What is not?
Yeah, so traditionally in the past, there has been this kind of playing out in society where manifestors found their way to power and they literally became kings, and generators had to do their bidding for them and had to do their work for them. So that is a dynamic that we have seen play out in the past. And that's why we have this conditioning now in the present about that. However, manifestors in this present moment, and as we're making this shift into a new paradigm, a new way of being, have a completely different role than that, like an almost opposite role from that. And now what manifestors are really being born into this human life to experience and to create for themselves is freedom. And their signature theme is peace. So actually, manifestors internally are like the most chill people you've ever met. They just want to do their thing. They just want to like have that freedom. They want to do something when they feel inspired to. They want to rest when they feel inspired to. They want to like just be free to go out and explore when they want. That's all that they're really feeling and thinking on the inside. But they have this aura that amplifies every little thing that they say and do and makes them someone who's very impactful. So them just doing their own thing and really creating a life where they have freedom and peace and flow, that is something that radically impacts other people. And it ends up being a catalyst for change and showing us a new way of living that's outside of this rat race structure where we have to keep going and follow by all these rules. So manifestors really can sometimes feel a lot of imposter syndrome when they first find out about human design, or they can just feel plain resistance. Like, no, I'm not someone who's like this king who's here for everyone to be afraid of me and whatever I'm doing. They're like, I am the most chill, just want to do my thing, just want to be in peace person. So it's really important for manifestors to understand that there is this difference in how they are perceived by other people because of their aura and how they experience themselves within their own being. And, when it comes to other people experiencing them, people who are really in alignment and who are right for that manifester are going to feel so radically inspired by meeting that person. Like I have met manifestors that are just, they feel like meeting a unicorn. They are just this beam of light and they channel these brilliant things. And it's like every little thing they say, like it moves you. And you only met them once at the grocery store, but you think about what they said, or something they said echoes in your mind and it inspires you later on. So manifestors have this beautiful role to be this catalyst in people's lives, kind of on accident without even trying. But that's happening when that manifestor is right for you and when you are aligned. So if you are out of alignment, good chances you're going to feel really intimidated by all manifestors. You're going to feel their power and you're going to feel disempowered. And right then and there, your own ego is kind of setting you up to not vibe with them. That being said, not everyone is for everyone, right? So there's going to be people who just resonate and they're meant to work together. They're meant to be together. They're meant to have these projects together. And that is something that you can only tell with your strategy and authority. So a lot of people ask us, should you have one manifestor in every group and one projector, and what are the best pairings? And we actually do not like to use human design in that way. Instead, we like to say, you follow your strategy and authority. So if you're just living in your authentic flow and this person comes into your life and they enter in correctly with that strategy, and then you feel in your body and use your body decision making, your authority to feel, do I want to be around this person? Do I resonate with them? Do they make me happy? Do I feel, like they bring me closer to my sense of direction? Whatever that question is for your authority, you are the person that can tell if that person's right for you or not. And so for manifestors, for all types, but especially manifestors, it's really important to know that if someone doesn't resonate with you, it's because they're not meant to be around you. It's not because there's something wrong with you or that you should have done something else so that they did resonate with you.
Yeah. And I also just want to add, manifestors, once you start really embracing your strategy of informing and just sharing what your inner dialogue, what you're thinking, what you're wanting to do, what you're, confused about or having a hard time with, um, you just see the world open up for you. The people around you, there's less resistance. People feel closer to you. Problems just get solved, and you really start to see your own power in just with your words alone, right? So there is this tendency, manifestors hate informing. It feels the most, unnatural thing, and they're the only ones whose strategy feels completely foreign to them. Everybody else, their strategy feels pretty good. And manifestors, that's just not the case. But the more that they exercise it and start informing and opening up before they have things figured out, that's key. They start noticing, wow, okay, the world is working with me, the universe is working with me, all the energy around me is here for a reason, and I'm either impacting them, and wow, I'm seeing my friends and my loved ones flourish in their life because of the things that I've just subtly sparked or subtly said. um, then it becomes this really joyful, fun practice to just say, you know what, I don't have this figured out, but this is what I'm thinking about doing, or this is what's hard for me. And it's radical to see. Um, we love manifestors, honestly. Every time we meet one, we're like, it just feels projectors when they are invited by a manifestor. It's this kind of treasure chest energy. We were just talking about this, where you feel like, okay, I'm discovering something amazing. And the manifestor feels this kind of surge of energy of, okay, I can maybe embrace my bigness. I can maybe open up and let the world in to see what's in here. So yeah, they are not here to be the kings. It's much more this queen energy of when I rise, you rise, and when you rise, I rise. And all I need to do is be vulnerable and open my mouth, and that's it. And so that's really where we recommend focusing on if you're feeling disempowered around your design being a manifestor, or if you're feeling repelling or alone or isolated in any way. Open your mouth and inform the universe, inform the people around you.
It's so funny because one of my friends is a manifester and she's like, everyone's repelled by me. Like people don't like to be around me. And she had this story that like something was wrong with her, that she's like so powerful that she can't be around people. But what you just mentioned is she just might not be around very empowered people who may feel that because she is super in alignment. So it may just be like her energy is so strong that like I love being around her and I love like my manifestor friends, but she just may need to change the type of people that she's around.
Yeah. Or, really radically informing, saying, I'm just annoyed right now. I don't want to talk. Or saying, I don't have any of this figured out. Or I'm feeling repelling to you. And I'm feeling like there's this resistance between us. Saying that out loud to whoever, you will see, you know, a lot of times there's this resistance because other people are trying to figure out what the manifestor's thinking or wanting to do or feeling. So they're asking questions and they're prying, or they're thinking, oh, they just don't like me. And so there is this resistance. And so you opening up and saying, I feel like you think I don't like you. That authenticity, it's like, oh, wait, you do like me? I thought that you didn't. And so it just eases everything up. So that's always a place that a manifestor can lean into. But in our own lives, we've been around a manifestor that says one thing and it sparks a whole business idea within Dayluna, that it's just like we feel inspired, we feel launched off, we feel so fascinated. And of course, then we're creating it. It's not coming from this person, but that's the power that manifestors have in other people's lives and in their own life or with their team if they have one.
I love that so much. I secretly wish I was a manifester if I could have swapped designs, because I'm like, oh, I love that. They're just so empowered and like doing their thing. But I know that I was born to be a projector for a reason. So of course I would never change it. And now reflectors, I'd love to know. I mean, for me, I feel like the misconception I see, if you're a reflector, it's like you are an empath, you can't really do anything, you just need to be like on the fringes of society, like meditating, like you are just here to be a sensitive soul. And
Mhm.
and I see some reflectors like take that and own it. But then like my brother, for example, who like works in real estate and is not spiritual at all, and he's a reflector, and I tell him this and he's just like, no, that's not me. So I'd love to hear your take on the misconceptions with reflectors.
Yeah, well, since reflectors are so rare at only 1% of the population, and since they operate in such a different way than all of the other types, they really have a unique journey. And all reflectors, more than any other type, can look radically different from one another. So there can be a reflector that is like a boss CEO in a company, and then there can be a reflector who's like a yoga teacher. And I think that the conception is that every reflector is going to be a spiritual yoga teacher, meditation teacher, and like really that's all that they're here to do. But it's really not the case. It's just that their energy is completely open. So they take in the energy of the people around them in their environment and they amplify it. So if they are around people who are CEO type of people and are driven and are really, logical and mentally focused, they're going to be taking that in and amplifying that and almost becoming it. Mirroring it back. And really the big shift for a reflector is when they realize that they are not this energy that they are feeling in this moment. They are simply amplifying the people around them. And who they really are is this completely open vessel, right? They are this spiritual being that is here to taste test and sample all of the energy and become that energy temporarily. But most reflectors have no idea that they're a reflector. So they hold on to this thing that they feel and they identify with it. And that's really where over time they can become out of alignment and they can feel their not self theme of disappointment in life, disappointment of how things go because they thought something was this one way and then it kind of shattered before them. So with reflectors, they can do any job. They can be the most energetic out of all the types if they are reflecting an environment that's like that. It's just so important that they don't identify with those ways of using their energy as their true self, because their true self is this completely clear, open vessel. And if they can identify with that and come back to that every day, then they can be taken on this journey every single morning where they get to take in that environment and amplify it again without really trying. So the big thing with reflectors is that you don't need to try. You don't need to control your life. You don't need to really do anything. It's so much more about letting life live you. and knowing that that's what you're doing instead of thinking that you're the one that's in control of the way that your energy is going to be that next day. It's really so much more about letting life surprise you.
Yes. Yeah. You end up so surprised by life when you start off with this clean slate every day of, okay, I'm going to take in the world and it's going to inform me of what feels good, what feels natural, what feels right today. And I'm not going to hold on to identifying with anything that I'm feeling, because that's what leads to sickness um, or just being really out of alignment. And a lot of, for all the types, it does come down to, at the end of the day, you know, are you being honest with yourself? Are you really being honest with how you feel? Because a lot of times when you don't resonate with your design, it's a matter of awareness and the authenticity that you're honoring each and every day. And if you are identifying with your conditioning, whether it's, when I was in college, I went to college for this, so that's what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Or I started this career in real estate and that's who I am now. And that's what I'm doing. And I have all this energy, and that could be super in alignment because you're reflecting that environment. It's just about being honest. Do I feel in alignment, or do I feel exhausted and burnt out every day? And am I just telling myself everyone feels that? And so I have to push through.
That makes so much sense. And 100%, I think with a lot of reflectors, they almost like don't want to rock the boat too much. Like it's easier for them to just go with the flow and accept, and just, this is just the way that things are, rather than maybe it could be, again, I'm just thinking about like my brother as the example of this, but it may be harder to take that like really deep look, and that like, I am responsible for how I feel. It's not just life's tough, get a helmet, everyone hates their job. It's, I am here for so much more. But maybe the struggle with the reflectors, because they're so open, they have a hard time knowing who they really are. And they see other people are like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And they like maybe aren't getting that hit. So they feel like, well, I guess I'm just meant to be doing what I'm doing because they don't have another strong enough idea of something else.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And that kind of is um, there is this tendency to feel like you want to be included. You want to be like other people. You want to be part of the mix and know who you are. And then there's this feeling of, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I belong. I don't know where I'm going. And so I need to latch on to whatever's closest to me, whatever's the strongest post nearby. Right. So the way that you navigate that in alignment is to clear out every single night and like go be in nature and like, what have I been identifying with? And let yourself just clear out and release what you're holding on to, whether that's emotions, whether that's thoughts, or motivation or energy, and knowing that it's not good or bad, right? None of these things are good or bad as a reflector. It's just about, okay, interesting, who am I today? That's really more of the question that's in alignment for you is, okay, I'm emptying out, and who am I today? And letting that guide you, because then you'll see that life takes you on this, you meet somebody in the grocery store and it's like, oh, I feel this. This just feels right in my body. Right. And then you think about it and you let it simmer for a month and you feel out that idea of maybe switching jobs or switching, moving. And you let that simmer, and throughout the month you're going to have all these different feelings because you're going through all the different authorities as a reflector based on your gates, based on how the moon is changing. So you're going to go through all these different decision making uh, centers in your body. And then at the end of that month, you either will have this clarity of like, you know what, this just feels right. I just know this is what I'm meant to do next. Or you won't, and it's not the time to make it. Let another month go by, or let that thing go because it wasn't meant for you. So, and then come back to every single day, who am I today? That's really the goal, the main things to focus on versus focusing on, I don't belong. I don't know who I am. I don't know what's going on in my life.
And yeah, and seeing that as a gift, I feel like our society moves so fast. So we're like, if I don't move as fast and make decisions fast, I'm like the weaker link. But that's actually such a gift to really be able to feel into it with every single authority and every single like go into all of our perspectives and feel into something so you can be so resonant. I actually looked up, and I'm curious if this is true, but it said Amma, the hugging saint, is a reflector, which I don't know if you guys have seen that, but she's like, do you guys know who Amma is? She's like this woman that basically she's like a living saint, and she hugs people, and through hugging them, she heals them. So she hugs like thousands of people a day. And these are people like who may have had like an illness or, you know, a big tragedy happen in their lives. And like her hug is believed just that love to heal. And she is listed as a reflector. So it's so fascinating because she is like a channel of love, which actually is one of the incarnation crosses, to be the vessel of love. I wonder if that's her incarnation cross.
Oh my gosh.
But she's like such an example of that. Teal Swan, also reflector. And she's like so clairvoyant and just like sees the truth. So yeah, it's so fascinating. And then like, of course, these are spiritual examples. There's people in all walks of life who are reflectors, but to not feel like you're a late bloomer necessarily. It's more that you're taking the exact amount of time that you need to make the best decision for you.
Yeah. And in general, you know, our society has not really valued receptivity and compassion and empathy and understanding. Like those things have been swept under the rug, intuition. And instead, we've really put a value on being assertive, being stubborn, being driven, being focused, being, you know, masculine in our mental way that we move through the world. Those have been the things that have been valued. So a lot of reflectors have been kind of conditioned to believe that their biggest strengths are not valuable. And of course, we are so radically changing. Like you hear people talking about the value of their intuition left and right. You hear people talking about empathy and being sensitive and all of these things. So we're really starting to see these shifts happening, and reflectors are like our leader in that because they are completely open, completely empathetic, and they get this experience of living as nothing at all, being just completely clear and open, and also being everything, being able to feel and become and not just see, but like experience within themselves every single quality that exists in humankind.
So good. And are reflectors increasing in population with time, or is it staying? Because I know some of the percentages are changing right now.
So reflectors are actually the oldest energy type. And way back in human history, all humans were reflectors, and we were completely receptive, and we lived as one common collective in tune with nature. Nature completely came within us, the lunar transits, the astrological transits. So that used to be the most common. And then over time, we've had more and more singular definition as we become more and more individualized. So reflectors are not really supposed to gain in numbers, but projectors are. We are going to see more and more projectors coming in.
Are all manifestors single definition? I mean, are all generators single definition?
No.
Okay.
Definitely not. Yeah. And definition is a whole nother layer where it just, you know, there's so many layers of your chart. It just gets so much more specific. So, you know, you can be a generator that has single definition. You really like working by yourself and having all of that kind of processing power really quickly. Or you could be a generator with split definition. You can really feel like you connect so deeply when you're in partnership, and you almost feel like parts of you coming together. So that's a whole nother kind of nuance within it.
So fascinating. There's so much to dive into. And I'm so glad that we had this conversation because, you know, I think in this Instagram culture, people make memes, and it's so much easier to be like, all projectors are like this, all generators are like this, all this are like that. And like, there can be truth to it. But if we don't look at underneath the hood, we can create these really limiting prophecies for ourselves that actually like don't allow our full growth to happen, but really limit us. So share this episode, guys, with anyone you've met who's like, oh, I'm a manifestor, I'm disgusted and repelling, or I'm a projector, I have to be tired all the time. Like, no, you don't. This is your permission slip to just honor and be you. And I know you're going to be diving in with us at Rose Gold Goddesses so much deeper into like looking at our chart, especially with the channels and what they mean and the gates related to it. So we're super excited for that next month in Rose Gold Goddesses. So thank you guys so much for your wisdom. And where can listeners connect with you? Check out your website. I know you have gift boxes, human design reader trainings.
Yeah. So you can check out our website. It's daylunalife.com. You can also check out our podcast, which is the Dayluna Human Design Podcast. And we have so many different resources. So if you connect more with physical like learning your design in a physical way, we have boxes that come with your chart and a bunch of different items that are personalized based on your chart. And then we also have a lot of video courses because, as we've talked about in this podcast, knowing your channels and your gates and your cross of incarnation, which we think is one of the most important qualities in your chart, um, it changes everything, right? It goes so much deeper than just your type or your authority. And it's so important to know because it really gives you that languaging to know, who am I? How can I use my gifts best? So we have a video for each of the channels, so that way you can really understand your gifts. And then we also have type videos that talk about how to really live your daily practice. So it's not just the basics of being a projector or generator or mangen. It really is talking about how do you navigate transition and change? How do you call in that next big thing? It's your daily practice, really laid out for you, so that way you can start honoring your design, honoring your energy. So our Instagram is at Dayluna, and you can check all that stuff out at daylunalife.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much again for sharing your wisdom. By the way, that you're both 2-4 projectors, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
awesome. I
Which
love it.
different authorities though, and Dana and I are so similar but so opposite. I'm single definition, she's triple split definition, so we have a lot of polarity in our chart, but it kind of brings that tension that I was talking about before, that's really balanced within the things we create, but it's also, navigating it too. So just
Yes.
living the designs.
Love that so much. Well, thank you again for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much for having us.